Hello Infiniteers! Today I'm going to finish the Hidden Worlds toy box by hooking up the logic for finding the hidden objects and the enemy wave generators. And the logic for this is fairly simple. In fact, it is so simple that I am not going to provide any logic diagrams for this episode because you don't need them. That's how simple it is. So let's begin by reviewing the Creativitoys that I placed ahead of time. And don't be intimidated by the number of these. Again, the logic for this is very, very simple. But we have a collectible tracker. We have the sound effect generator from the Gameplay Toys drawer. We have an action enforcer. We have a randomizer. And we have 5 replayers. Then we have a trigger area that I dropped down over the start pad. We have an enemy wave generator, and this is connected up to locators set up in the forest, which you see there. And over here. And this one, which is sitting up in the tree. Okay. And I configured this ahead of time. I hooked them up to the locators with the new locator connection, and I configured them with the enemies you see here. All right. And on all of the enemy wave generators, I set the generation delay to 0. Okay. And then over here, we have a trigger area that I dropped down on top of the tunnel entrance with the little resize handle there. The other one would have been in the opposite corner. And I stretched that, as you can see, to fill the tunnel all the way down to this point. So it fills the tunnel, it fills the sewer here underneath the Snuggly Duckling. Okay. Then I dropped another trigger area out here with the lower corner positioned there, and I stretched this to fill the interior of the Snuggly Duckling. So the trigger boundary for this actually comes to this point, which is in the upper corner of the interior. All right. I dropped another trigger area over top of the rowboat, and I dropped a sky changer. Again, this is out of the Instant Fun category. And we dropped a button. Inside the tunnel, we've got a number of locators set up under here. And the exact placement of these doesn't matter. You just want to place them in several spots throughout the tunnel. And I'm trying to show you where I put mine, but there's a couple of them here in this part of the corridor. And then a couple around the corner over here. And then a couple, or one more around the corner over there. And those are connected to this enemy wave generator with the new locator connection, which I configured to use 4 of the King's Guards. And now that I'm thinking of it, I don't think I had an extra locator over here. I think it was just the 2 that were here, the 2 that were over here. Because I only needed 4 locators for those 4 enemies. Okay, and then over here, wait, what? One more thing at the Snuggly Duckling. Almost forgot, we have a friendly wave generator back behind here, connected to locators within the Snuggly Duckling, which you see two of them there. And you see others, if I can get them selected, there. And this friendly wave generator is connected to them with the new locator connection. The wave is configured with these characters here. And under properties, I set the generation delay to 0. The generated friend options, I left behavior set to none, so they'll wander around inside the Snuggly Duckling. Okay, over at the town, we have another friendly wave generator connected up to the locators you see there. Try to give you a good look at those locators. And this is connected or configured with the townspeople you see here. You can choose any one you want. These seem to best fit the theme of the toy box. Properties set the same way as the other one. And then we also have a dynamic trigger that's connected to that locator. And the properties on this one are set to locator and trigger distance of 84. Then we dropped another trigger area here with the little resize handle there, and I stretched it out so that it covers the entire peninsula here all the way back to the edge of the castle here. Okay. And within this trigger area we dropped down some locators, as you can see. There's 5 of them. And connected them to this enemy wave generator, which is configured with 5 of the King's Guards. And we're almost done. This enemy, this trigger area here is stretching from that ladder all the way over to this rope ladder over here. And we also have another trigger area back here, which I forgot to take these links out. We're going to go ahead and recreate those here in a little bit. Okay, so no matter whether you come up that rope climb, or that rope climb, or that rope climb, or that ladder, you'll still trigger the same behavior here that I want to trigger. And then up here we have an enemy wave generator connected to the locators that you see up there. There's 5 of them. And this is configured with 5 of the King's Guards. Okay, so that is everything that I have done prior to the start of the video. And I know it looks like a lot. Don't panic. This is super, super simple. Okay? All right. So I'm using a trigger area here at the starting pad versus a level starter. Because what I want to do is I want to be able sometimes, if I want to tweak this toy box or in the process of building it, I want to be able to come in here and enter the toy box and get out of this area here off the start pad and go into spark mode and not trigger the start of level behavior. So I'm using the trigger area for that. And there's 2 things we're going to do with this. All right, this is going to generate the enemies when we leave this trigger area. It'll generate the enemies here in the woods, and it's also going to put the collectibles out into the toy box. All right, and for that we're going to use these replayers. I have already set up 4 of them, and I am going to do the last one for you just to show you how to do it. Okay, so we want to come down to the gameplay toys and find the collectibles. We'll start with the parchment scroll and scroll left as we go. So we'll come out of the editor, and what we're going to do is we're going to step on the first replayer here. And again, I'm going to show you this replayer. I'll show you what I did, the end result for the others, but I'm going to show you how to hook up just this one because they're all the same. So you step on the replayer, you get the menu in the lower right corner of the screen. On my Wii U, I press B to start recording. That changes the circle to a square below the B. And then I got to step off to get back into the editor. Okay? And now we're going to place the 5 collectibles that we need, that we want the player to find. And for this set of collectibles, I'm going to place them like I had them placed in the playthrough video. So the first one is going to go over here. The next one, as we're scrolling, we come to the crown. That goes up in the castle room. And I had hidden this thing right here behind the door when it opens. The shamrock will go over in the dam area, and for this first choice of locations, I placed it down here on the ground. The next one is the mushroom collectible, and I had placed this up on top of the mountain over here off the end of that rail slide. That sits right here like that. And then for the potion, which goes over by the Snuggly Duckling, for this one I had placed it down in the tunnel. Let's see. Down here like that. Okay, so this is in the end of the tunnel before you go into the sewer to the rope climb. Alright, so then I will exit out of the editor, which takes me back here. We step on the replayer to get that little menu in the lower right corner. I press B to stop recording, A to clear. Make sure you only press A once. Okay? Now I'll step on the other replayers here and show you what I've already done. So on this replayer, I'm going to do a playback. So for this one, we place the shamrock down there between the building and the mountain. For the bottle, I place that here in the Snuggly Duckling in the back corner here behind that those 2 chairs. The mushroom I placed up here. So to get to that, they'll have to climb around this first little mountain. For the scroll, I hid it near the same location, but I put it on the other side of the tower. So I was a little bit sneakier with that. And then for the crown, we put that up here inside that little area. If you don't like my hiding places, that's okay. You can choose your own. That's not a problem. And you'll notice I only put down 5 options. You can do as many as 10 replayers. So you can put down a lot more choices of hiding places than what I've got. But this is enough to give you the idea of what to do. Again, you can double this. So I'm going to go ahead and clear. And then we'll step on the next replayer. I'll do a playback and show you where I put those. Alright, so for the shamrock on this one, I put it down there off the elevator. For the bottle, I placed it down over here. So we're outside the Snuggly Duckling this time. Over here, I placed the mushroom down on top of this. If they have a super jump character that can get to it, they can use the super jump. Otherwise, they'll have to climb the tower and drop down from above. For the scroll, I put that out behind this building here. If I can select it, well, you can see it. There it is. And then for the crown, I put it up here, inside that area. So I'm using a variety of hiding places. That gives the player the chance to see, we'll play back that one. That gives the player a good replayability because they'll never know exactly where these things are going to be. All right, so the next shamrock shows up there on that part of the dam area. The next bottle, this one, shows up behind the Snuggly Duckling over here. The mushroom is up here. The scroll is right there. And the crown this time is in the throne room again, but it's in a different spot. So it's right there visible when you come in. And again, if you chose to put in 10 different replayers instead of just 5, there are a lot of places here you can choose to hide these things. So go creative with it. All right, the last replayer for this one, I put it out over here, down by the flower. For the bottle on this one, I put it again in the inside of the Snuggly Duckling, but on the opposite side of the room. I can select it, I'll show you, there it is. For the mushroom, that's over here this time. Okay. And if you wanted to, you could put it up here. You could put it somewhere up here on the mountain, have the player have to climb that. You got places over here on these two peaks, other places you could hide it. If you wanted, you could put it inside the little tunnel here where it's really hidden. And the Snuggly Duckling, you can add some kind of a way to get up on the roof and put it up on the roof. You could hide it out there on the end of this thing. And there's all kinds of places where you could go. For the scroll on this last one, I put it between those two buildings there by the docks. You got all kinds of buildings here in town where you could stash it. And then for the crown, we put that over here this time. And again, you got all kinds of places here around the perimeter of this where you could stash that thing. So lots of options. But that gives you 5 different locations for every collectible. All right, so then we'll go ahead and let me clear that. All right, so for the main quest, again, this is pretty easy. So on the trigger area here, we do a new logic connection. When exited by player any, we'll generate our wave. And we only want to do this once. So on the enemy wave generator, a new logic connection, when the wave is generated, we'll deactivate the trigger area. On the trigger area, new logic connection, when exited by player any, we will come over and invoke the randomizer. And on the randomizer, new logic connection, on random trigger 1, we'll do a playback on that replayer. On the randomizer, on random trigger 2, we'll do a playback on that one. On the randomizer, new logic connection, Random trigger 3, invoke that one, and so on. You get the idea. But I'll go ahead and hook these all up since I'm almost there. Random trigger 5. And if you added 5 more of the replayers, you can hook them up to random triggers 6 through 10. Okay, so that puts the collectibles out into the world. And then all we need is the collectible tracker to determine when we pick up the last one. So on the collectible tracker, the properties on that are set with collectible type to all. And I have this turned on, but you could turn this off. So you have to learn, or you have to look for them a little more, and they won't show up on the radar. So either way, however difficult you want to make your hidden object challenge, you can leave that on or turn it off. But we're going to do a new logic connection when the final collectible is collected. We'll come over to the action enforcer. We'll have all the players celebrate. And on the collectible tracker, a new logic connection when the final collectible is collected. Come over to the sound effect generator, and we're going to do musical fanfare. That's my standard end of mission sound. And by the way, on the sound effect generator, make sure under properties, 3D sound at speaker or locator is turned off. It's on by default. You want to turn that off. Okay, and that is it for the logic of the main quest. That is very, very, very simple. Okay, so you exit this. That kicks off the main quest. This manages all of that. And we also generated the first enemies. Now, on the trigger area over here at the tunnel, we want to generate the enemies inside the tunnel. So we're going to do a new logic connection when entered by player any. And again, the trigger area stretches from this entrance all the way over to the well underneath the Snuggly Duckling. So regardless of which end you enter, it'll generate the wave. Okay? But if the player decides to leave there without battling the enemies, we want to make sure we clean that up. So on the trigger area, new logic connection when exited by player any. If they happen to exit that area without battling any enemies, we want to go ahead and take them out. The player's not going to see them running around up on the top of the world here, so we don't want them to be in the way. Okay, at the Snuggly Duckling, this is going to do basically the same thing. So this trigger area will do a new logic connection when entered by player any. We'll come over to the friendly wave generator, generate the wave. That'll put the patrons in the Snuggly Duckling. And on the trigger area, new logic connection when exited by player any. We'll come over to the friendly wave generator and defeat the wave. Very, very simple. So you go into the building, they show up, you leave the building, they go away. Saves memory. And if you go in here and you drop down into the tunnel, you'll notice the bottom edge of this only goes down as far as the ground. So if you drop out of the bottom of that trigger area into the tunnel, that'll also take them out. Okay, over here in town, we go to the dynamic trigger. We do a new logic connection when entered by player any. We're going to generate the wave. And the radius on this is set to 84. So when they enter the town and they cross about over here and they move in this direction, that'll put the townspeople in. And on the dynamic trigger, new logic connection when exited by player any. We want to remove those townspeople. Okay. Very simple. Okay, the trigger area here, when the player enters this, we want to generate the enemies over here. So a new logic connection when entered by player any. We'll come over to our enemy wave generator, generate the wave, and we only want to do this one once, so we'll do a new logic connection on the enemy wave generator. When the wave is generated, deactivate the trigger area. If I wanted to, I could have this work like the one over at the tunnel. And when they exit the trigger area, just take the enemies out, and then every time they come in here, put new enemies in. That's your choice. I liked it better this way over here. Okay, and then on this trigger area, at the castle, new logic connection when entered by player any. We'll generate these enemies. And a new logic connection when the wave is generated. We will deactivate that trigger area. And we want the trigger area over here to do the same thing. So, new logic connection when entered by player any. We'll generate the wave. And on the enemy wave generator, new logic connection when the wave is generated. Deactivate that trigger area. Okay. And there we go. That is all of the logic for the enemy wave generators and the main quest. The last thing we want to do is hook up the logic for the rowboat. And for that, I'm going to come out of the editor. And I'm going to put down my power disk for Rapunzel's birthday sky. That will set the sky. And now we'll come over to our trigger area over here. We'll do a new logic connection when entered by player any. Come over to our sky changer, and under hexagonal power disks, we'll select Rapunzel's birthday sky. Okay. And then we'll use this button to put the sky back. So when that's pressed, come over here to the sky changer, go down to Disney Infinity, select the Dragon's Flight sky. Okay. So then I'll come out of the editor, take the power disk off the base. We can come push the button to put back the summer sky. Put back the summer sky. Or not. It might be because this sky changer was already set under properties for Dragon's Flight sky. Might have to... There we go. Had to set that. Okay, so now with the power disk off the base, the sky set to that, we should be able to jump into the boat, get the sky change. Again, the power disk is not on the base. And now we should be able to come over and push the button and get the sky back, and we do. Okay, very good. Alright, at this point you can take all of these Creativitoys and move them below the terrain to hide them. So those, that, the enemy wave generators up there, and the friendly wave generators, and all of these things over here, you can move below the terrain over here, and then delete this little temporary piece of terrain, and you'll be done. Well, that's all for me today. Be sure to come back next time for the next classic toy box that you guys requested, which is Donald Duck's OJ Race. This is a very fun but challenging race, and it'll be a fairly easy build because there's no logic needed for it. You won't want to miss that, so be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already. And if you're enjoying these updated classic toy boxes and this series, please hit the like button and leave a comment to let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Take care.